Hi and welcome back to the Native Speaker Experience. In this clip we're going to look at the article rules for a and the zero article, which means nothing. And the good news and bad news here is the bad news is there are many of these rules about articles in English, but the good news is the rules are pretty simple and fun to learn. So here we're going to look at the street rule. So there are rules for streets. Names of streets and roads inside towns do not use the, but names of streets and roads between towns do use the. So let's have a look at some examples. Streets and roads inside towns and cities, and then we have roads between or outside towns and cities. So obviously if it's outside or between a town, it will be called a road. So I live on Maple Street. That example, you should not use the. Okay, if a street or a road is inside a town, then you will not use the. So that's a mistake. Make sure you get rid of that. You should take the M50 out of Dublin to get the airport. So if you need to leave Dublin city and go to the airport, which is outside the city, you'll need to take a road called the M50. Common mistake by students is they often say you should take M50. That's a mistake. So it's a very basic mistake that sounds very like poor quality English to native speakers. Make sure you say the M50. Anne works on Wall Street. What's a common mistake by students? Anne works on the Wall Street. Very bad. Don't say that. Get rid of it. Okay. There was a checkpoint on the Dublin Road 2 kilometres outside Sligo. That road is obviously outside the town, so you use the. What's a common mistake? Students forget to use it, and that's a mistake. If you say there was a checkpoint on Dublin Road, that sounds completely terrible, so don't say that. The Prime Minister lives in Downing Street. Common mistake. Students say the Downing Street. Don't say that. That's bad. Get rid. The runners left the village and ran along the Newcastle Road for 10 kilometres. When we see the, we understand this is the road outside the village in the direction of the town called Newcastle. Why do we know that? Because we see the. What's a common mistake? I'm sorry to say, but you guys forget to put in the sometimes, and you've got to watch that. Next one. The stadium is on Lansdowne Road in Dublin. So Lansdowne Road is a famous stadium in Dublin, and this is a road inside the town. How do we know that it's inside the town of Dublin? Because there is no the. Okay, but shouldn't it be Lansdowne Street? No. Very common. It's very common, especially in residential areas, for not to use the word street but to use the word road. And here you'll notice that we're using a capital or, an uppercase or letter for road. Okay, so there you can see that we're using this road. What's a common mistake? Students put in the. Don't do that. That's a bad idea. Get rid. Very bad. There have been several accidents on the M1 motorway. It's outside, because it's a motorway, it's outside the city. And how do we know that? Well, it's the M1. That's a famous motorway in Britain. What's a common mistake by students? You guys drop it, and you can't do that. It must be the M1 motorway. The police station is on Pierce Road. Pierce Road is obviously inside the town. How do we know that? Well, there's no the. Students sometimes add the, and that's a mistake. The capital or also tells us that it's an address. And here we see an abbreviation of road. Sometimes on addresses, people write RD. I don't know why they abbreviated a word with only 4 letters, but they did. So if you see RD, you know that it means road. Don't put in the, because it's inside the town, so take that out. That's a mistake. She lives in the 3rd house on the right on the Galway Road. Here you will understand from this sentence that this isn't a road inside a town, like both of these in the example. This is the road outside the town. How can you know that? Because they use the word the, and this or is small. Okay, common mistake. Students forget to put in the here, and then this causes confusion. Tottenham Court Road is a great shopping area in London. Sometimes students put in the Tottenham Court Road, and this is a mistake. However, in the case of this exact street, I picked this one because sometimes people use language a little differently. This one is a very famous street in London, and bus drivers and cabbies and taxi drivers, they sometimes say the Tottenham Court Road. Now, it's a slang usage, but if you go on holiday to London, you'll see this, so don't be too surprised if this pops up. But generally speaking, that's a mistake. Don't use it. The bus travels from Donegal to Galway along the N17, and that's the name of a road, the N17. Okay, very often roads have got this number. So, common mistake by students is they forget to put in the. You've got to put in the. However, in the USA and Canada, routes, highways and interstates between cities do not use the. Some examples, well, Route 66 is a famous highway that goes across a number of states in the USA. Interstate 40 runs east to west, and King's Highway 11, commonly referred to as Highway 11, is a provincially maintained highway in the Canadian province of Ontario. Okay, so here these are roads and highways in between towns and cities, and because it's in the USA, they don't use this. Why? Well, ever since the War of Independence, America has often distinguished itself from Britain by changing some aspects of the language. It's more of a political thing that became a cultural thing as time went on. Also, one other thing, there is a rare example of a street in London that does use the. Okay, and this street is called the Mall. It's pronounced mal, like malpractice, or like pal, not like the American shopping centre called a mall, which is the same spelling. So the Mall is a road in the city of Westminster, central London, between Buckingham Palace at its western end and Trafalgar Square. So that's a common thing. Now, if it's just one street, well, because it was in London, lots of towns copied it, and here in Ireland, the Mall is a street in Castlebar, County Mayo in Ireland, and the Mall is a street in Sligo in Ireland. And I'm sure that's the case in a number of regional and provincial towns in Britain as well. But I'm putting in this example because it's so rare, it's good to know it. But I would say that 99% of streets are, you can go with the rule that they do not use the. And that's a quick presentation on the article rules. Don't forget to like and subscribe. That's all from me. The very best of luck, and I'll see you next time.